Hello everyone, welcome to our 7 to 8 AeHIN hour. We are now using GoToWebinar. If you need assistance, please feel free to send us a message through the chat box so we can help you. If you're having difficulties in configuring your connection, please log out from the session and rejoin again. You may also use your smartphones or tablets to join by using the webinar ID 758390995. Before we start our webinars, here are a few reminders. For attendees, your microphones are muted throughout the meeting. You can chat your thoughts to us through the chat tab. For questions, please type them in the Q&A tab. All questions will be answered after the speaker's lecture. Tonight's speaker is Dr. Carl Fourie. Dr. Carl is a Senior Program Manager at GEMB Health System, a South African non-profit organization with a history and career working in digital health on the African continent. Being part of the team that began and implemented the Rwanda Health Information Exchange, the architecture and technology that would grow to become the foundation of OpenHIE, Dr. Carl has been part of the OpenHIE group since inception and is a leader within OpenHIE communities and the OpenHIE Implementers Network. We will now call on our speaker, Dr. Carl.
Thank you very much. Well, it's not that. Well, good evening, everybody, and good afternoon from South Africa. Thanks for being on the line today. One quick correction: I'm not a doctor at this stage. I'd love to be, but unfortunately, my time behind the wheel, so to say, has kept me busy. So it's just good old Carl. So thank you very much for making your time available this afternoon. And as has been mentioned, one of the things that we're hoping to talk a little bit about today is the OpenHIE Implementers Network itself. So I'm hoping my screen is able to be seen by everybody on the call. Elvin, are you able to see my screen at this stage?
Yes, Carl, very clear. I'm also
Fantastic.
logging in there.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everybody. I believe the AeHIN hour has been quite successful in the past, and I've been on a few of the calls, so it's quite a privilege to be here with all those online. And what I'd like to do is try to bring a little bit of the OpenHIE community of practice into a space where we can start bridging the two communities that are evolving, particularly on the Asia continent and bringing those on the African continent together. So today is a bit of a visionary session where I'd like to spend a little bit of time unpacking the OpenHIE Implementers Network, what our vision is, what we're trying to achieve, and more so also reaching out to yourselves as potential members to understand what you would be looking for and also hoping to contribute, gain, and participate in. We all know we're very busy and engaging with a range of networks and communities already, and one of the key things that I always look at when getting involved is how am I able to gain value and how am I able to contribute to these types of bodies. So today, as I unpack what we're looking at, I'd really value those on the line to share their thoughts and opinions, to either put them in the chat, retain them as questions, and to help us drive forward this idea of being helpful. I loved what came out of the last AeHIN meeting. A phrase that I've put into my vocabulary is friends help friends. And here is a great opportunity for us to learn across the continents, between the Africa-Asia link, learn from our similarities, and also identify the differences that make us unique, but also provide insight into many things that I think we can learn from each other. So getting started from there, a little bit of an introduction. As you've heard, I do have a history working with OpenHIE, and as many of those involved today in OpenHIE, it started out of the work that I was doing with GEMB on the Rwanda Health Enterprise Architecture Project, later becoming the Rwanda Health Information Exchange. Arguably, and in fact, the first instantiation of the first version of the OpenHIE architecture here on the African continent in Rwanda, focusing around a maternal care use case. We learned a lot from that project and the process itself. A lot of it was around the technology, but more around that was the governance, management, and approaches that worked and what we maybe should have done to have made it a better implementation itself. And so those experiences have driven us over the last 5 years to invest in the OpenHIE community, have more people engage with the community itself. Looking at the attendees, I recognize some of the names here who are already part of the OpenHIE set of communities, and we value the contribution. Many minds looking at one problem often bring a solution to light a lot quicker. So the OpenHIE Implementers Network is really a community that has evolved over the last year, coming from the fact that in the last 5 years, OpenHIE has spent a lot of time looking at its architecture, learning from its refinement of its workflows, of its use cases, and looking at identifying and developing its reference technologies to support these workflows. In a sense, we needed to make sure that we're able to eat our own cooking, and we're able to show that what we're planning and what we're putting down as an architecture is able to be instantiated in a technology itself. But technology without context and architecture without a need, this comes back to that old saying of a hammer looking for a nail. And before OpenHIE reached the stage where it just became a ivory tower of an architecture or an out of context based solution, we identified a need to actually start reaching out to OpenHIE implementers. Many of us who have been implementing the OpenHIE architecture or projects around it, utilizing the reference technologies, were those who were involved in the very beginning. And we understood a lot, we had a lot of context and a lot of history with engaging in the community, setting up many of the communities, understanding how we moved across the various groups who were interested in the different types of technologies or components itself. But as time marched on, we were inviting more and more people to become involved in OpenHIE, to utilize it. We started to see the OpenHIE architecture being referenced in many donor-requested solutions or proposals. And with that, we noticed that there was becoming a barrier or quite a high step towards engaging the OpenHIE community or understanding how it all ties together. So the OpenHIE Implementers Network is a dedicated forum to a range of people, but particularly looking at a few key stakeholders, those involved in understanding the technologies. So there are the real tech groups themselves, those who are working with the software, wanting to know how do I actually consume an OpenHIE proposed workflow? How do I engage with your proposed standards? How do I connect? What does it look like? What does it do in software? But we often know that software is one of the last steps that we take in implementing an information system for a health intervention. What we also identified is that there are groups who are really looking at country implementations, or those country implementers who are responsible for bringing to life this concept, this architecture, and not just standing it up, but making sure that the lights are on, that the lights stay on, that it's able to be maintained in the future, the real day-to-day running of an information exchange with the various nuances that are arising from this concept of health data sharing, the ability to manage and govern the use of health data across multiple entities, and the politics between data exchange. There's a lot of information that country implementers need that is not 100% or a one-to-one mapping to OpenHIE itself, but often when looking at information exchange and the architecture that we have proposed in OpenHIE, these questions start to bubble up. So there is a need for a forum for these community members to engage and feel that there is a space to ask these questions, and really a nail to hang these questions on. The other type of implementers that we're looking around are the domain experts, those who are very familiar with particular health intervention strategies, or looking at how one would create a strategy to achieve a particular intervention, and identifying some of the challenges in the existing health scenarios. So we call those domain experts. Maybe they're TB experts, HIV experts, those who are looking at case-based surveillance across a range of areas. We wanted to provide a home and a place where groups who are looking at providing a particular intervention could ask and share information and ideas around how would we do a particular use case. For example, CRVS, civil registration and vital statistics. How would that come to life in a particular architecture? Would this come to life in around the OpenHIE work? So if we had a look at it, those are really the three main groups that we've been looking at. And you'll see that on the OpenHIE Implementers Network page, which is on the OpenHIE Wiki, you should be able to see the URL at the top here. We've slowly started to build out a space where we want people to start engaging and ask us questions and start working with us. So I just want to check, is everybody still online and following me?
Yes, we are. We're on mute, and not everyone has access to a microphone, just a few people.
Okay, fantastic. If there are any questions or comments, I am watching the chat window. If you'd like me to pause, I'll happy to respond as we go from there. So engaging with the OpenHIE or the AeHIN, the Implementers Network, our primary engagement methodology at the moment is our mailing list. And that's using the Google Groups. And as you can see on the bottom right-hand side, we have a simple subscribe and a simple post methodology. I do know that some of us on the call today have been engaging already around it and understanding what is available, asking some great questions. Dr. Sambath has been there asking some questions about the key technologies that we've already seen being used. And we've seen some developers or implementers asking the right types of questions to the point of discussing, I'm getting this error message, can somebody point me in the right direction itself? So we're seeing this as a catch-all space to start onboarding and lowering any step that there may be to engaging with the OpenHIE architectures and workflows. But that's all fun and that's all well said, but we first also want to make sure that we're creating a portal and a space which is providing links for those who are quite familiar with OpenHIE, but also still trying to become aware of what OpenHIE is doing. And this is where I feel the community, from the AeHIN community, can be very valuable in helping each other and ourselves drive forward and provide the information to the questions that may be asked. So some of the key points that we have is we're starting to add a few quick links on the side for those who are quite interested in trying to understand, for example, what is the OpenHIE architecture? If we're picking on the OpenHIE, the actual architecture side of it, we're able to rapidly identify what has become quite a common diagram for those who are familiar with the OpenHIE architecture itself. I will leave some space at the end of this conversation for those who'd like me to run through the various components or to ask any key questions about this itself. So I'm just reading the question. I'll pick that up in a minute. Outside of the architecture, we've also seen that there are a range of workflows, and sometimes our OpenHIE workflows are not that easy to identify or find. So we've created some quick links towards these, and these workflows, when one digs into them, actually work through how the HIE is lit up to solve a particular problem. Here we see the example of querying patient-level data, where we have a point-of-service system or a point-of-care, such as a medical record system. What request and response is, and how that's translated. What I'm engaging with around here is really looking at saying this information is becoming more and more available, and we'd encourage users to be aware of it. One of the exciting developments that we're having happen this year, as you can see, it's still very rapidly evolving, is the OpenHIE face-to-face implementers conference. This has been scheduled for the last week in July for Arusha in Tanzania, and it will be our first face-to-face meetup of the various groups involved from the OpenHIE Implementers Network, the core communities itself, and the various developers and interested parties wanting to spend some time engaging with the OpenHIE teams, looking at the key use cases that are evolving, spending time working as a group to evolve use cases, develop the management strategies, structures, and implementation strategies towards an HIE-based solution, as well as creating a technical track for developers and implementers to engage in really understanding on how to wire tools and technologies together. And as mentioned, for those who were in the OpenHIE deep dive session at the AeHIN meeting, one of the myths that we are debunking around OpenHIE is, while it's not a downloadable EXE, it is an architecture first and foremost. It is a pattern, it is a strategy, it's a strategy and an architecture that protects the existing investment in technology by promoting an open architecture and a standards-based approach to leveraging your existing tools and identifying where the OpenHIE architectural components are either pre-existing or need to be instantiated to support a key set of workflows itself. So as the OpenHIE architecture is modeled in a country, we often see that there are sometimes existing tools that play the role of an HMIS system, or may play the role of a health worker registry or a facility registry, and sometimes there are multiple components in one particular piece of technology. But with that, we've also debunking the myth that there is only one set of tools that make up OpenHIE. We've seen quite recently and quite excitingly the introduction of a range of technologies putting themselves forward to play the role of one or more of the HIE components itself. And that could be from the interoperability layer through to the client registry, the shared health record, and so on. And that is where we're quite excited with the new 2017 implementers meeting. Is we're hoping to have those groups present and engaging with us to actually understand their challenges and their successes around how they've been consuming or adhering to the OpenHIE architecture, as well as where they've found there's information lacking or gaps within the data that we have available, and then also for those who want to contribute information to the community itself. I think that's the beauty of the open communities, is that we are open to engagement. We encourage community-driven content. We encourage experience-driven outputs. There's a lovely saying that I picked up years ago, is experience trumps opinion. Most times out of 10, close to 10 out of 10. And for those who've got skin in the game, or those who've been through the process of implementation, they know where the rough spots are, and those are the voices that we need to hear to understand how we can avoid those same challenges as implementers moving forward. So the OpenHIE Implementers Network to come up to a higher level again is really an implementation community for those of us who are engaging with national scale implementations, particular health use cases, or even looking at this componentized architecture and how we apply it to a much smaller project, be it within a province or even a single hospital or facility itself. Each of those, there are questions of how we would apply it. There are challenges in management in the implementation strategies, where we'd love to hear and create a space for us to discuss it as teams moving forward itself. So I'm going to pause there. Alvin, I hope this is okay if I mix up the format a little bit, trying to bring in some of the OpenHIE style of community, and pause for some questions and comments before moving forward.
Sure, Carl. So we do have some questions here. Charis, can you manage the QA portion?
Yes, Dr. Alvin. Here is a question from Dr. Sambat from Cambodia. He's asking, do you have training or online training plan or schedule for users or developers related to OpenHIE?
Thanks, that's a great question. The short answer to that is no. We don't have existing training that is formally available. So you won't find, if you Google OpenHIE training for it. There are some slides, decks that are available under the resources tab for training that Jembe did for a group in Zimbabwe about 3-4 years ago on around some of the basic concepts of OpenHIE itself. But because there's such a broad set of audiences, what I'd love to get some ideas on are what type of training topics would be valuable. What are the big sticking points or the pain points at this moment? Is it understanding the architecture? Is it more consuming the workflows? Is it how to map a workflow? Any guidance around that would be brilliant, and we can start looking as a community how those resources are made available.
All right, thank you, Sir Carl. Follow-up question from Dr. Sambat. If a country wants to apply OpenHIE, what are the basic requirements to be defined?
So I think applying OpenHIE is a great question, it really we need to look at when we talk about applying OpenHIE, what of OpenHIE are we talking about? As I said a little earlier, it's very recently that we've started to publicize the facets of OpenHIE, what it is, and the maturity to it. So I would like to look at OpenHIE as probably 2 key deliverables and a third support. One of them is, firstly, OpenHIE it's an architecture. It's a paper design. It's something to utilize to guide thinking around how you could approach key workflows for particular use cases. So it's a paperware deliverable. The second is there are reference technologies and a range of them that support some of the key OpenHIE components. So there is OpenHIE, the reference technology side of it. And the third support is the OpenHIE community, where you have collaborators, users, developers itself. So if I can take a liberty and try to step through those 3, and if anybody would like to add or build out on those, please feel free to put some points in the chat message there, and I'll call out you too. So
Carl?
For the first one, yes, Alvin?
Carl, this is Alvin. So let me also try my hand on that question for Dr. Sambat. So the question is, if a country, Charisse, can you read it again? If a country
wants to apply OpenHIE, what are the basic requirements to be defined first?
So coming from the Philippines, we invited Derek Ritz, Sean Granis, and Paul Biondich over here in 2013 at the second AeHIN general meeting in Manila, and that's when we started considering the use of OpenHIE architecture for the Philippine Health Information Exchange. And we found out that governance is a very important answer to that question. Essentially, you can apply OpenHIE in your laptop, and that would be sufficient for anything that runs on your laptop. But then when you want to apply the architecture to a larger scope, like a hospital or a network of hospitals, or within the region of your country or for your whole country, then it starts asking the question of who is the governance that will mandate or that will support the use of the OpenHIE architecture in your country. It becomes very, very crucial to identify the governance structure, because there are many stakeholders involved in actually implementing an architecture like OpenHIE. And unless you have the right combination of stakeholders on the table and a clear decision-making framework, you'll be hard put making sure that all the components that you need are actually working at their optimal level. Carl, what do you think?
I think you've touched on something that is probably the biggest challenge that we face. Is the technology is the easy part, but it's that governance framework. People are the hardest part of an information system because we're very resistant to change. So I think, Elvin, you've touched on one of the biggest challenges that we have, and it's something that I think we could learn from the work that you've done there in Asia, and as a team is built forward, is some basic guides to engaging and designing a governance framework around this itself. Derek, I know you're online too. Do you want to weigh in on that too?
Yes, Derek.
Derek, you there?
Derek, I've unmuted you. Try again, Derek.
All right, I think Derek. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Yeah, I have actually a sort of a bit of a checklist that I believe countries have to go through before it's time to start standing up software and implementing systems. And I appreciate that this is going to sound so basic, but my sense is that a country really does have to have a health system strategic plan before they should be operationalizing any software. So that's the first piece, the health system strategic plan. I know that many of the AeHIN countries have had the opportunity to work with the WHO ITU toolkit. And so I would suggest that the next crucial piece is that there is a digital health strategic plan that serves the health system strategic plan. So that would be sort of the second tick box on my checklist. The next one for me would be that there's a blueprint of some sort. And that's just because, as we all know from constructing anything, you wouldn't call in your carpenters and your electricians and your plumbers to start working on your house if you didn't yet have a plan for how that was to look when it was finished. So I would suggest that the third checkbox for me on the checklist would be, is there a blueprint that operationalizes the strategic plan? And then one of the things where I think we now start to get to the nuts and bolts of where OpenHIE begins adding value and potentially quite significant value is that not only can OpenHIE inform the blueprint, but also a very important piece to that, which is the norms and standards to be adopted by the country. And in the absence of the national norms and standards, I don't think it's possible to get that all-important network effect. That's how the interoperability starts to happen. And to be honest, the development of the blueprint and the development of the norms and standards and the adoption of those on a national basis cannot be done without the governance piece that's already been mentioned. But I would add those other, sort of crucial processes and artifacts to the checklist of what would a country need to do to be ready to start implementing national scale digital health.
So in the Philippines, as Derek said, we wrote the strategy, and the strategy required the definition and creation of the governance structure. But I think in some other countries, even the writing of the strategy requires a basic governance mechanism. And so that's why AeHIN is supporting countries with their convergence workshop, where we try to help the ministries of health come together, interact within their own ministry and also across and between other ministries like the ministries of ICT, so that they can come together and form a governance, a pre-governance structure, so that things can start working. They can start working on their health system strategy. So I agree with Derek, health system strategy. But then who is responsible for writing the strategy is the first question that we have to tackle before we even go to the deeper technical aspects of an OpenHIE implementation. Carl, back to you.
Thanks, Alvin, and I really hope you're not expecting me to answer the who should be writing the strategy question, because I think that is that's definitely a very fun question to be engaging with. And just to echo what Alvin has said and the points that Derek's highlighted, in South Africa, we've released a few years ago now our health normative standards framework document, which is really a lot informing the blueprint that is hoping to operationalize our health strategic plan, but focusing on the norms and standards that our country is mandating for data exchange at an electronic level. It is taking time to implement it. It's a long process. That's something else that we're seeing, is this is not a quick set of steps. And while I think many of our countries are heavily engaged, and there's a lot of investment and politics around health data, how it's used, how it's governed, how it's managed, and those are all highly important questions to be engaging with and to reach consensus and a governance structure on. I think if one word comes out of this conversation today, it's that governance is important. We've seen success in South Africa. Mom Connect, for example, is a government-led project. It's been mandated by the Ministry of Health. It's been operational for three years now, and it's one of the largest. I think it's quoted as the largest. It may have been overtaken recently in terms of maternal and pregnancy registrations in the country itself. And it's been based off a very simple data model, but employing an architecture that is influenced by the OpenHIE design and some of the key reference technologies. So why I'm raising that is, while we go through these key checklists that Derek have pointed out, I think it's also important to understand one's own context and realize, for me personally, I believe a thin, simple use case is often going to get more impact and traction than trying to do it all at once. And one of the phrases that came out from AeHIN, which I think is just a great one as well, is that today's innovation is not in how complex you can make a particular solution. The innovation today is to scale. If you can scale small with a simple use case and you can go wide, you create an opportunity by which you can potentially expand. And we're living that day to day here in South Africa, where Mom Connect has expanded to become Nurse Connect and is looking to expand even further today.
Charisse, is there another question?
Dr. Alvin, Dr. Sambat is just asking if there's any case study of private clinic sharing using OpenHIE.
Carl or Derek?
From us, we haven't seen it implemented yet, that the private clinics in the countries we're working at is sharing information utilizing the OpenHIE framework itself. We have been engaging on another project in South Africa where looking at some of the private clinic groups, their EMRs are engaging on the same standards and profiles that we've spoken about and looked at within OpenHIE. So it's not a technological problem that the data isn't being exchanged. It's more that there isn't a project and a governance or an enforcement to connect those types of systems at the moment. But that's probably my answer to that one there. Derek, do you want to weigh in? Have you seen anything that you've got from there, or any of your other experiences?
Yeah, my experience is similar to yours, Carl. The uptake that we've been involved with so far in OpenHIE has been through ministries of health. And I think that, again, this just underlines the importance of governance. At the stage that these projects are now, and I'm thinking particularly about projects such as the BID implementation in Tanzania, it was rolled out to the public sector immunization clinics, where there are private sector clinics that are also conducting immunizations. There is not yet a mandate for those clinics to be updating the immunization registry or the immunization register. That's in the cards. That's part of the next phase that's contemplated, but that is a governance challenge. And I can tell you that it varies from country to country, the degree of governance that is exerted by the Ministry of Health or the Department of Health on the private sector. In some countries it's quite strong, and in other countries it's still an unmanaged area. And that boils down to governance. I really do feel that when we're talking about the foundation upon which everything rests, governance is that foundation. It's almost impossible to implement and roll out anything of any scale in the absence of that governance. And different countries are at different levels in that regard. I will say the choice of a technology stack the choice of a standards stack when we were going through the engineering phases of the OpenHIE communities, we did favor specifications that we knew to be widely adopted in the market, in the ecosystem already, and we continue to favor that as we see FHIR being taken up in more broadly. We are also looking at that and working with that in the OpenHIE communities. We want to be we want there to be a set of specifications that's operationalized in the OpenHIE framework that are the ones you would typically find in the ecosystem, the ones that you would typically find open source components for, because you know, we're trying to lessen the barriers, reduce the barriers to adopting.
We have on the call former Vice Minister Ted Herbosa. I don't know if he has a microphone right now, but he was part of the governance structure when he was still with the Ministry of Health, and when we were about to start the Philippine Health Information Exchange. Sir, do you have a mic? Like share your experience?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we can.
Very well.
Great. Thanks. Good evening to everybody. And I'm following the discussions. And yeah, Eloy, Alvin talked about governance. And from my experience, what we learned was that governments are very slow. Digital health changes occur quite fast and quickly. And the digital world is changing at a very rapid pace. But the governments aren't able to actually adapt to that speed. Even in the Philippines, for example, we shifted from an ICT office that was under the Department of Science and Technology, and then created a specific ministry only for ICT. So these are things that are evolving, and the governments do this very, very slowly. So the difficult part really in OpenHIE and implementation of digital health is that the government bureaucracies are slow, but the digital changes occur very quickly. And sometimes the adoption is faster within the citizens themselves, or in the private sector, or in networks of hospitals that are. So maybe the approach and the design should be well thought of on how to implement it, because as we think of it, the way we've thought of it is, I think, it's going to be a bit hard to really succeed because of this disjunction or schizophrenia between government and how it works and how the IT world implements. Your thoughts?
So that's interesting, because you're the only person in the call who's actually in the Ministry of Health at that level of influence and position. And I kind of agree with you that if it's going to be a government-led exchange, it will be moving only as fast as how government can lead it. But if it's a public-private collaboration, then the government can be on the table, but then the private sector will have the flexibility and the speed, agility of the private sector will be there under the supervision of government. Do you think that would work? Over?
I don't know. I really don't know if it's really going to be a public sector, private sector partnership, or whether it's going to be a change in the government itself, or the change in the way we design digital health for the future. Because I think what's happening is we're trying to make solutions that were thought of in the past or in the present for things that will happen in the future. So I'm talking more about being able to really design national, and I think it's, yeah, scale is a problem, and I saw that when they try to scale solutions, there is a big problem. But I think the problem of scale is that it wasn't designed very well. And the way we think of architecture is you design the house, and then we build it. I think some of the technologies we have today didn't even think of how they were going to happen the way they are today. Look at Facebook, look at Twitter, look at Uber, Airbnb. What happened is an idea is spurned, and then it evolves, it creates its own evolution. So I think that's very important to really think differently in the way we design digital health for the future.
Great, great. Thanks for those wise
Thank you.
words. Carl, did you have any more slides before I take on over?
No, no more slides from myself. Just a call to the members of on the call today. Please join the mailing list, and topics like we've been going over today. This last conversation was just ringing so true in my ears. We'd love to engage with that and try elicit some design ideas and thoughts around how we can better position ourselves to address the speed of digital health change versus the governance that needs to be developed alongside.
Great. So I'd like to carry on from where Carl left and talk about the Standards and Interoperability Lab for Asia, if you don't mind, Carl.
That's fantastic. Over to you, Alvin.
Right. So thank you very much to GEMBI, which is an interoperability lab in Africa, operating in Africa. We also have started building an interoperability lab in Asia with support from WHO, UNICEF, and ADB, and we're calling it the AeHIN Standards and Interoperability Lab for Asia. And the context behind the lab is not to create something that has been already created by the OpenHIE network, but rather make those things, those artifacts that have been developed, come to life in Asia. So maybe to summarize, the Standards and Interoperability Lab for Asia, or our short name for it is SILE Asia, would be the group that will help Asian countries bring the OpenHIE architecture to life in real-world environments. So I'm not sure if you can see my screen right now, but we've started work on a Confluence page, which later on would merge with the main OpenHIE wiki. So SILE Asia is basically one of the groups that have spun off the Asia eHealth Information Network discussions. So it is completely an AeHIN group. It's supported by WHO, UNICEF, NORAD, and ADB, and other partners. The lab physical space right now is inside the University of the Philippines, Manila, specifically inside the Philippine General Hospital. And can you see the screen? Our goal is to provide technical assistance to public and private organizations in Asia with their efforts to make their e-health systems interoperable. Whether it is for universal health coverage, non-communicable diseases, disaster management, infectious disease control, immunization, SILE Asia will assist countries build capacity to interconnect their existing systems using international standards. What do? We basically follow the Mohawk approach, where they have the 4 T's: the teaming, the testing, the tooling, and the training. And we've undergone training from Mohawk already regarding this. I think, Carl, you also underwent the same training from Mohawk. And we're also adopting AeHIN's Mind the Gaps and Fill the Gaps approach, where we think that governance is very important. Architecture follows governance, and program management and standards interoperability are all informed by the architecture. So over here on the left side, you will see some links. This is not yet a finished page. We're still in the process of developing them. But our draft architecture is basically OpenHIE. So right now, what do we have on the table? We have, we're working with Mohawk, helping the Myanmar Ministry of Health with their Master Person Index. We are engaging Vietnam and helping them out understand the OpenHIE architecture. So we're meeting them in China on May 18 to 20 to talk about how we can transfer technology and expertise about OpenHIE to Vietnam. Of course, since we are at the Philippine General Hospital, we are helping the hospital with their interoperability needs. And lastly, we have a local government unit in the Philippines, a small city that has implemented CHITS OpenMRS in their 10 frontline clinics, and they've implemented BOMNI in their hospital, and they want to interconnect these two systems through an OpenHIE architecture. So we're a young lab. We're still learning our ropes, but we're learning them through implementation. And we really appreciate this relationship with Mohawk and Gembi, because as we get our hands around the architecture, implementing them in a real-world environment like PGH, Navotas, Myanmar, and Vietnam, we are learning. We have access to the knowledge experts in Canada and in South Africa, and also feeding back to them, some challenges with implementing those artifacts that have been developed by these experts, as I mentioned. So what do we anticipate? We hope to continue these calls between Mohawk, Gembi, and SILE Asia. We want to listen to you. What are your needs? We want to tell you about the things that we are doing, our projects, and tell you what our successes and our failures are, and what our lessons are, and build a community in Asia, at least for SILE Asia. And I think for South Africa and Africa, Gembi is interested in forming your own learning network over there. But the bottom line is, if you're in Asia, you want to learn about OpenHIE, how to bring it to life, from as far back as governance to architecture, to implementing that architecture, to actually writing software and source code and interfaces and application programming interface. If you're in Asia, please contact us. If we can answer it, then that's it. If we cannot answer it, we will link back to our friends in Gembi and in Mohawk and in other interoperability labs. And we might not be able to answer all questions, but we hope to get the answers as fast as we can, and from the network that we've formed between the labs in Canada, Asia, and Africa. Thank you. So maybe if there are any more questions, Charisse, we still have 14 minutes, a few more questions. Oh, by the way, I'd like to introduce our team members. So I'm the manager of the lab, and then we have Mr. Rua Dangawan. We have Engineer Randy Joseph Fernandez, Ms. Pearl Gasmen, Rose Ann Sale Zuniga, Dr. Raymond Sarmiento, Philip Zuniga, and providing us support is Christine Pascual and Charisse Orhalo. You've met them, some of you who were in Naypyidaw, met the team members, and we've also reached out to Dr. Paul Biondich and agreed on to work together, create this capacity within Asia to have OpenHIE architecture capability, from architectural design to solutions development to problem solving. And all of us are actually faculty of the University of the Philippines, so there's a heavy academic component here. We've started to entertain students from the computer science program, started to introduce them to interoperability, to basic e-health concepts, and hopefully it will be a very busy laboratory like Mohawk. I haven't been to Gembi yet. Maybe it's busier than Mohawk, Carl. But we hope to create, maybe I can announce it, Carl, a lab of labs where we have an interoperability of interoperability labs between Mohawk, Gembi, and SILE Asia, and hopefully get more people like you who have attended this call and get you immersed in the OpenHIE community. Carl, back to you.
Thanks, Elvin, and I think it was perfect time just to introduce those concepts that we spoke about at the AeHIN meeting a few weeks ago. It's really exciting to see the SIL network and labs coming to life, and it's great just to be able to partner and have those collaborations between us. Seeing your team go through the same training that the original Gembi developers went through with Mohawk is brilliant. So we're very excited to have this opportunity to work across here, and I think this is a great space to collaborate in, with the SIL Asia being the face and the presence of really trying to grapple with some of the deep technology questions and the work that Elvin's outlaid here. What we'd really, the desire of this call, and truly the desire that I have, is to form a cross-continental group that wants to collaborate about changing the world and addressing the problems that we face today. We're in a beautifully common yet unique environment where we work to serve a population far greater than ourselves, and we are facing challenges such as the speed that digital health moves, and the challenge of having government catch up with that or find a way of managing that. These are real problems that every country that I've been to will face and does face. And I think the fact that we've got people on this call today asking these questions, I truly believe we have the right people around to start finding the deeper nuances of these questions, to start answering them. So I really hope that we've got another call scheduled. Is it 2 weeks, Elvin? Is that correct?
Yes, yes, Carl. Let's make that every 2 weeks just to get the ball rolling.
Yeah. And what we'd love is groups to bring questions to this call itself. And as you've seen today, it's been quite collaborative and open. This is the style of the OpenHIE calls that I'm familiar with, and there's great value in that. There's also some chaos if it's a free-for-all for everybody. So if we can find a strategy and a style that we can dream and vision together to create a space where we can share experiences, that would be truly fantastic from my side. So I would ask for the next call, if anybody on the call or anybody within the AeHIN wider network have any use cases or key questions or comments, that we post those today, that we can hopefully get a collaboration and a group together to try to discuss that and move that forward in the next call in 2 weeks' time.
Yes, to follow up on Dr. Sambat's question about how to start an OpenHIE adoption. So AeHIN has facilitated convergence workshops in Myanmar, Vietnam, Indonesia, and next week in Timor-Leste. And the purpose of a convergence workshop, as I mentioned, it's a 2-day workshop, and it's led by the Ministry of Health. And it's basically a call for partners to come help the Ministry of Health create an interoperability capability within the health sector. And to be able to do that, you need to have a clear governance structure, and that's the output of the workshop. We clarify the governance behind the interoperability capability, and you have to have a blueprint for interoperability, and that's where we introduce OpenHIE. So in the convergence workshop, the output would be, this would be our steering committee, this would be our technical working group, this would be their terms of references, and then we introduce OpenHIE as a architecture for them to consider. They don't need to make a decision right after the convergence workshop, but they start looking at the architecture and see if the architecture can actually be a responsive one to their interoperability needs. Then after that, we ask them to look for whatever project that they think needs to be interoperable, and then we offer our assistance in helping them do that. So for example, in Myanmar, they wanted to find out which of their patients are in the TB database and which ones are in the HIV database. So they wanted to have an MPI. In Vietnam, they wanted to find out which patients were in the immunization database and which ones were in the outbreak database. In the Philippines, a local government is asking which of my patients are in the frontline OpenMRS system, and which one of them are actually also in my hospital information system. So the business cases are different, but the architecture is the same. And I think that's the benefit of the OpenHIE architecture. It's a very flexible, system responsive architecture. It's standards based. It has a community, and having all of these resources who can answer your questions is very, very helpful. Over. So there was a question here about, will there be any notes taken from Yuda? And my answer is, we're actually recording this call. So we will post this call later on in YouTube in the AeHIN channel, and you can review them. The notes will be, I'm sure it will be in our Confluence, but it will also be at OHIE Confluence page as well. Carl, did you want to say
Yeah.
anything about the larger global OpenHIE implementer network? Over.
Thank you, Alvin. I think for those who may have missed it in the beginning, it is an open network. It is a space for all of us, no matter what level and where we're engaging, to come and ask questions. Signing up, you may see some questions about code. As a developer, you may also see questions like, how do I start an OpenHIE adoption and try to build these out? So we welcome everybody to that space, and as it grows, as the community grows over time, we'll see it focus around its key topics. So I think just to echo what Dr. Elvin just said, we'd love to get the notes also onto the OpenHIE wiki and create that as a space. There is already a space there for the fortnightly calls, so every 2 weeks, and I think it would be great if we could work with the OpenHIE team to make sure the call connection details are correct. I do believe we missed a participant today, but that is due to me not making sure Michelle has the right information. But thank you everybody for this, and I think if we can consider topics for the next call, one that I'd love to put forward is Dr. Elvin giving us a high-level run-through of how to start an OpenHIE adoption based on some of your strategy of the conversions workshops, and to see as a community what we can pick up from that. But maybe we can pick that up in cyberspace. Elvin, over to you. Thank you.
Great. So I'm taking note of that. How to start OpenHIE? How to maybe initiate OpenHIE in a country? Adoption in a country? Carl, would that be a good?
I think
title?
That's great, and yeah, that would be fantastic.
Then I can be the presenter there, and we can invite some people from Myanmar, Mohawk, to tell the story about how they've started their journey towards adopting not the whole OpenHIE architecture yet, but components and parts of them, and why they made those decisions. Great.
I think that'll be brilliant. Fantastic.
All right. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Carl, Derek, USEC Ted, former USEC Ted, for coming in. Our next call will be May 3, same time. It will be how to initiate OpenHIE adoption in a country, and other topics that might come out in that call. Is that okay, Carl?
Fantastic. Looking forward to it, and I'll make sure that the call details are circulated to the broader OpenHIE communities, and particularly our colleagues on the African continent. I'm sure they'll be very excited to participate.
Perfect. All right, guys. So let's call it a night. Thank you very much, Carl. Thank you very much to our participants, and good night to everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Right. Bye.